This video is about solving a quadratic equation. I should say this should say equation by completing the square. This is the standard form of the quadratic equation we'll be solving. The first thing we want to do is move C to the right hand side. These are the list of steps you follow if you want to complete the square. So in number 1, C is the constant term, it's 2, so we move 2 to the right hand side. So this is going to become x squared minus 6x equals to negative 2. Now step number 2 may be omitted if a is equal to 1. In this case, a, the leading coefficient, is 1, so we can omit step 2, skip it, and go on to step 3. Step 3 says identify A, B, and C. I said no because if we had to do step 2, it changes the values of A, B, and C. So identify the values of A, B, and C. So A is equal to 1, B is equal to negative 6, and C is equal to negative 2. So really I'm going to say just identify the new values of A and B. That's really all we need. All right. So then step 4 is to add b over 2 to both sides. So I left a little space here because I know I'm going to be adding something to both sides of this equation. What I'm going to always be adding is b over 2 quantity squared. So b in our case is negative 6 over 2. Negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3 squared. And so when I write this down, on the left-hand side, I want to leave it looking like this because I don't want to lose my negative. This is negative 3 squared. And when I multiply it on the right side, negative 3 times negative 3 is a positive 9. I can go ahead and multiply it together. Now step 5 says to factor the left-hand side into x plus b over 2 squared. You can factor the left-hand side or you can just rewrite it. This will always be the square root of this term plus the square root of this term. So the square root of negative 3 squared is negative 3. So x minus 3 squared is equal to negative 2 plus 9, which is 7. And now what we have is an equation in the form something squared equals to something. So we will finish solving this problem by the square root method. Take the square root of both sides, we get x minus 3 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 7. Add 3 to both sides, we'll get x is equal to 3 plus or minus the square root of 7. Our two answers are 3 plus the square root of 7 or 3 minus the square root of 7. Okay, let's do number 2. Number 2 is different in that a does not equal to 1, so we're going to have to do step 2. So we have 3x squared plus 18x minus 1 equals to 0. What we want to do first is move c to the right hand side. So we'll move c to the right hand side and we get 3x squared plus 18x is equal to 1. Step 2 says if a does not equal to 1, divide both sides by a. So a is equal to 3 at this point, so we want it to equal 1. We have to do this legally by dividing both sides of our equation by 3. The 3 will divide into each individual term. We're left with x squared plus 6x equals to 1/3. That's what we have right now. Now we are ready for the fourth step, which says to add. We're going to add something to both sides. What we're going to add is b over 2 quantity squared. We need to identify the new a and b. So a is now off of this equation right here is where we start calling off our a and b. A is equal to 1. B is now equal to 6. So we use this b value to find b over 2 squared. So 6 over 2 squared is going to equal to 3 squared. On the left hand side, I'm going to write it like 3 squared. On the right hand side, I'm going to go ahead and put 9. I now need to rewrite or factor the left-hand side. This will factor into the square root of x squared, or x plus 3. I have a positive 3. I write down positive 3. X plus 3 squared equals to 1/3 plus 9. I'm going to think of this 9 as 9 over 1. I'm going to get a common denominator by multiplying the numerator and denominator by 3. This will be 27 plus 1 is 28 over 3 is what you get. 1/3 plus 27 over 3 gives you 28 over 3. Now we're going to take the square root of both sides. The square root of x plus 3 squared is simply x plus 3 equals to plus or minus the square root of 28 over 3. X plus 3 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 28 over 3. I want to work on this a little bit. This is the square root of 28 over the square root of 3. There's a couple of things going on here. Let us, I'm going to do a couple of things. I'm going to rationalize this denominator. You're not supposed to have a square root of 3 in the denominator. So I'm going to multiply this by the square root of 3 over the square root of 3. I have x plus 3 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 28 times 3. Those can be combined under one radical over 3. All right, let me go ahead and move the 3 over. So this x is equal to negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 28 times 3 over 3. Let's look at this. The square root of 28 has a perfect square in it. It has a 4. We could rewrite 28 as 4 times 7. And then we have this 3 under there. So we could take the square root of the 4. This was the square root of 28 times 3. It will become a 2. We're left with the square root of 7 times 3, which is 21. So this is plus or minus 2 square root of 21 over 3. That is not a pretty answer, but it is our answer. It's negative 3 plus 2 square root of 21 over 3. Negative 3 minus 2 square root of 21 over 3.